Hi, I'm Simon K. Jones, and you're listening to the audio version of my ongoing serial Tales from the Triverse. And today's chapter is called In the Beginning. In the beginning all was bright, a pure, brilliant white from edge to edge and top to bottom, from one corner of the universe to the other, and back again. All was bright, all was energy, all was one, and the universe slumbered. Such was the way for 10 billion years, though time was yet to be invented. There was no happiness and no sadness, no suffering and no prosperity, only the white void, which did not cast judgment, did not observe the sins of others, did not snatch its wonders away, for there was no one else. A questioning crack appeared, a black tear infinitesimally small, inconsequential against the unending light. Slowly at first, ever so slowly, in poured Illumet, through the crack, slowly and then quickly, flowing in an unstoppable rage. Illumet the herald, bringing with him the 4 riders. Brightsun breathed in the light, swallowing it whole, becoming a breaching inferno that threatened the end of everything. Frostfield counselled Brightsun, subduing her fire, compounding it into a single point that became the sun. Verdant used the concentrated energy to give birth to life, which flourished and spread far and wide. Illumet saw the danger, and commanded Leafless to bring death and entropy, such that there would be balance. Having completed his work, the herald Illumet withdrew. The white void, now become black, its light confined to the sun, the way was open for the arrival of Unihex. The creator of time and space wielded the sword of Parlin, using the blade to slice at the sun once, twice, thrice, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 cuts, over and over, its energy cast out into the abyss, until the black void was illuminated once more, now by the speckling of fresh stars. Unihex held the smaller stars in their hand, cooling them until they became rock and earth. They blew on the pebbles, scattering them across space. Upon the rocks hopped and skipped the tiny god, Paf, carving the mountains and the valleys, the rivers and the seas, from the tallest cliff to the tiniest grain of sand. Where life once roamed untethered across the skies, it now flocked to the planets. Glacius, Lord of Liars, placed his hand upon each living creature, and gave unto them his essence. To some he gave only a little, the beasts and the trees. To the sea people and the Koth he gave more. To the Ainfa he gave everything, and we were one with the stars. The 4 gods shepherded their creations, and all was well. The bright light shone within every being. Unihex looked upon what they had accomplished, and was satisfied. No longer having use for the blade of Parlin, it was plunged into the very earth itself, almost to the hilt, and became the peak. Unihex sleeps near his sword, and will wield it again, should the universe have a need. The secret god, Paf, walked among people as one of them, delivering small miracles to those worthy. Glacius remained to whisper in the ears of those who would listen. The harvest god Illumet was not yet done. Bringer of both fortune and disaster in equal measure, he was not satisfied, and wanted more. He commanded Verdant to work the forges hotter and longer than ever before, and from the crucible was born the first human. Bringing forth the long decline, the Ainfa's energies were diminished, stolen from us by the usurper race, severing our ties to the soil and the air. Despite our pleadings and our faith and our protestations, Illumet withdrew and remained unknowable. Glacius promised aid, but the Lord of Liars deals only in illusion. Paf concerns himself with smaller matters, and Unihex rests. We await the return of the gods, for that will be the time of blood and toil and reckoning. 3202, Frostfall, on the road south. Wow, Lola said, turning the page. This is intense. Davila smiled, rocking back and forth as the caravan continued along the mud-strewn road, rain thumping on the canvas roof. I did say it would interest you. Right, but I've never read about any of this. I've heard of the Palanese gods, but none of this was taught at school, and it's not in any books I've read back on Mid-Earth. Slava was slumped back on the bench, her eyes half closed. That's because it's an Ainfar text. You'll only have read the stuff approved by the university in Brulia. They've done very well out of being the gatekeepers of the primary portal. Nodding, Lola flicked back through the pages of the book. There are elements here that are quite common in creation myths back on Mid-Earth. Myths, eh? Slava said, raising an eyebrow and opening her eyes. Don't be saying that around any Ainfar you meet. Right, Lola said, but this isn't literal. Didn't your department have dealings with Glacius and Path on Mid-Earth earlier this year? Davila was enjoying watching Lola's mind expand before her eyes. The journey had been quiet, uneventful, and exactly what they needed after the rough passage through the Brulian wastes. The temperature was already warming as they headed south, and the rain had arrived, turning the roads to sludge. She pulled back the tarpaulin from the side of the caravan and leaned her head out. Rain was a luxury they couldn't afford back in Brulia. It was always the thing she most looked forward to when leaving the city, whether she was travelling through the portal to London or across the continent. The wet haze that lay across the fields was unimaginable to anyone who had lived their life in Brulia. Even as someone who had been fortunate to travel extensively, the joy she felt had never diminished. Clark did mention something, but I assumed it was impersonators. I mean, even if there were real figures in history, or even still around, they're not actual gods, right? They're going to be highly skilled wielders. Maybe they can do things nobody else can do. Heathen, said Slava, closing her eyes again. Well, what about you two? Lola said. Are you believers? I believe in magic, Davila said, pulling her now soaked head back inside. Well, that's different, Lola said. You can actually do magic here. But you can't on your world. I know that. What's that got to do with anything? When the portals first opened, some people thought our magic might leak away, that we'd lose the ability to wield. Like what happened to the Ainfar. I thought you said you didn't think it was a true story. Whatever. Some had a crisis of faith. The gods clearly did not exist on Mid-Earth. Nobody had heard of them. There was no wielding. Perhaps we'd been mistaken all along. Others looked at it the other way around. That we were clearly superior. That the gods chose to bestow us, and only us, with these gifts. Lola put the book down and crossed her arms. But what do you think? Stop talking in generalizations. I tend to think of wielding as more of a science, Davila said, with a slight shrug. I take my energy from light. That much is certain. But Path exists. I've seen him. Whether he is a god or not, I have no idea, but if he is, as the weak god, the tiny god, he's my patron. I'm a micrologist. I'm not going to risk not believing. Ah, Lola cried. This is all so exciting and weird. No offence. How long until we stop for the night? At least another 3 hours until we reach the next town. Oh, good, Lola said. Lots of time to do more reading. Thanks for listening. You can find a lot more and behind-the-scenes notes over on the newsletter at simonkjones.substack.com.